Hey y'all, this is Jon Tipton here in Comfort at the middle school. This is where we're having the meeting for the new battery company come into town. Just wanted to introduce y'all to the area. Wish y'all could be here, but it looks like it's going to be standing room only. Stay tuned for more.
On the KCE Energy Texas Development Team, and I'm very pleased to be here with you guys this evening. I just wanted to thank you all for coming out and being able to have your voices heard here. We have definitely been listening to a lot of the concerns that have been raised by folks in this room already, and we hope that this presentation will answer a lot of those questions, but we're also going to be saving a lot of time at the end for a question and answer session to hear from all of you guys. So make sure that you have your chance to have your voices heard. I do want to ask that you please hold your questions until the end of the presentation. I have a lot of fun information to get through. And so I just wanted to start us off with showing you guys the agenda. Oops. Let's see, this is on. And not quite. Let me come up. Okay. So. All right. Okay, so this is the agenda which we're going to be talking about tonight. I wanted to start us off by introducing our company, KCE Energy, and the work that we're doing here in Texas. I also wanted to run through some of the benefits that this battery project would add to the electric grid, as well as to the benefits that would come to Kendall County as well. We're also going to touch on some of the technology specifics around this battery and go into some of the safety questions that we've seen. So with that, I will introduce our team that's here tonight. Everybody will be getting up to help me present this presentation, and so they'll be introducing themselves as they get up. But with me this evening, I have a few of the directors from the KCE team to help answer some questions, and then we also have two of our expert consultants here as well that are going to help answer those questions. All right, so I wanted to dive right into a little bit about KCE Energy and the work we're doing here in Texas. So KCE is a US-based company, US-founded company, and we are, our headquarters are in Albany, New York. Our largest offices are located in Houston, Texas. We have about 100 folks on our team right now, and 35% of those are Houston-based. We were founded in 2016 as a developer, owner, and operator of battery storage projects, so we really see the project through the full life cycle. We develop, own, and operate it. In Texas, we have 11 projects right now. That's about 580 megawatts of electricity, and we have over 1,000 megawatts that are in development across the state. We are a national company, so we have 623 megawatts in construction or operations throughout the country as well, which has enabled us to invest over $500 million in those communities. So this is a map showing some of our existing projects. Just want to start us off showing the Houston office is the star, and then the orange logo is the project we're talking about here tonight, Texas 26, or you might hear me refer to it as Ringtail Ridge Storage. Interchangeable names, don't let me get that confusing. And then the yellow logos are showing our two projects in construction right now. We have two, one outside of Denton and one outside of College Station, both in construction. And then all of the green logos are showing our projects that are in operations. There's a lot of projects in operations throughout the state, and KCE Energy is actually one of the industry leaders in the state. We were one of the first to be able to bring a battery storage project online, and that was back in 2020. And ever since then, we've really seen the prevalence of batteries popping up left and right because ERCOT is on the record stating that they support the more batteries coming onto the grid to support the increased demand and electricity that we're seeing here in the state. All right, so that brings me to this slide where I want to talk a little bit about the benefits that this battery storage project would provide to the grid. So I'm sure a lot of you know that sometimes when it gets too hot or too cold, the ERCOT grid really struggles to keep up with the demand for electricity as all of the population is increasing in Texas and there's a lot more demand than there used to be. And batteries are really the perfect and much needed solution for this problem. So a real life example of this and how this worked is back on September 6th of last year. That was during that heat wave that we were experiencing in Texas where it was 100+ degrees for a solid month, that miserable summer. ERCOT actually announced that they were in emergency conditions on September 6th where they were going to need additional electricity to come online to help support the increased demand. And the chart on the right is showing real time what was going on with the grid. Sorry, this is, apologies. Okay, so on September 6th, this chart was showing that around 8 p.m. there was ERCOT released a call that they needed more electricity to come online. And batteries were able to dispatch 2.2 gigawatts of electricity back onto the grid, and that's enough to power around 1.8 million homes. So that's what that spike there is showing, that our batteries were able to respond in a matter of moments. The main takeaway that I wanted you guys to take away from that slide is that batteries are the much needed solution to a problem of ERCOT needing additional generation to be built in this state. So I've talked a little bit about our company, this project, and now I wanted to hand it off to Julie to talk about some of the economic benefits that this project would bring to Kendall County.
Good evening, my name is Julie Miller. I'm a consultant with the firm Altus Group. Altus Group, if you're unfamiliar, is a state and local tax advisory service. We have been working with KCapture Energy on this project along with several other of their Texas projects. And you'll see up here we've quantified the value of the benefits, of the property taxes to both Kendall County and to Comfort ISD. This number here on the left, we have estimated at $1.5 to $2.5 million in tax revenue to Kendall County. That does incorporate the proposed county tax abatement, so it's not 100% tax abatement. It abates a portion of the project for a short period of time. This next figure over here, $6.5 to $10 million, that will be property tax revenue that's estimated to go to Comfort ISD. The property tax abatement through the county does not abate any taxes for the ISD, and so 100% of that value is reflected there. And then additionally, this project will create between 30 to 50 construction jobs. Those will be on site during the 18-month construction period. And then Erica is going to share an exciting donation that KCapture has made.
Yes, I would like to thank you, Julie. So I did want to let everybody know that we are, as a company, we try to be the best neighbors we can in a community, and we take pride in being good neighbors. And so I'd like to announce that we've done a $5,000 donation to the local Boys and Girls Club chapter here, and we're looking forward to working with the Boys and Girls Club on a longer-term partnership as this project progresses. And the Boys and Girls Club is a special nonprofit for me. I used to volunteer there when I was a student at Texas A&M. All right, so thank you for this little whoops back there. I appreciate it. All right, just wanted to now dive into a little bit about the development process as a whole. I want to talk about our multi-year development process and then a little bit about this project specifically. And that brings me to this slide, which is showing a proposed project layout. This project is located along Flat Road, and it's connecting to LCRA's Kendall substation.
A dead-end road, I'm sorry.
Flat Rock Creek Road is a dead-end road, yes. So this is the blue outline is showing the 8-acre lease area, which we have, and then the gray area is showing our batteries and the electrical equipment that would be going along with it. As you can see, the footprint of our actual batteries is quite small. We're really only taking up about 3 to 4 acres of space out of our 8-acre lease area. And I would want to talk about how small of a footprint battery technology really is. So this small facility is able to power 100 megawatts or 80,000 homes, which is a lot. And so this is not like some multi-hundred-acre wind or solar farm coming in, or even a large coal or natural gas plant being built. This is a very small 3 to 4 acre development that's going to provide a lot of benefit to the grid. I did want to mention that we are going to be building a fence line around the project site, brown, natural colored to blend in, and then also going to be building a tree line to help block that visual view. We've heard from community members that the visual aspects of this project are concerning, and so we are committed to building that tree line to help block some of that visual. All right, and then this slide talks a little bit about our multi-year long development process. I've mentioned that we work with ERCOT and LCRA for this project, and it all kind of starts with ERCOT. So we submit an interconnection application to ERCOT, and then that kicks off the interconnection study process with LCRA. And during that study process, they're studying all of the electrical components, the technology, and figuring out how much, what upgrades would be needed in order to connect our project to the grid. Once those studies, or during that study process, we're also concurrently working with the local municipality, and we are working on doing all of the due diligence on the project site in order to make sure that we're building a good project. Also during that time, we signed the interconnection agreement with LCRA. Once I'm done with all of that development and interconnection work, I'm able to hand it off to Matt, who's our director of construction, who's actually able to build the projects. And during that construction process, it's around 18 months or so. And as we mentioned, it supports around 30 to 50 jobs, and those are all kinds of jobs from electrical work to concrete excavations and that sort of work. So now I'm going to hand it off to Matt to actually talk about how these projects get built.
Thank you. I'm going to stand up over here. So I'm Matt Phillips, the Director of Construction here at Key Capture Energy. I'm going to talk a little bit about the BEST technology. It's really broken down into 2 major components. The BEST system, which has included the battery enclosure and the medium voltage transformers, and the actual project substation, which connects to the batteries and then connects that power to the grid. If we go to the next slide, you can kind of see over on the right side this project substation has a main power transformer, an H-frame that essentially takes all the power that we're storing, pushing and pulling from the batteries to the actual grid. We talked about tying the LCRA substation. As you can see on the batteries side, everything goes from the substation down to the medium voltage transformers that you can see right there next to the batteries, and then ultimately the batteries to store for a period of time to then push and pull onto the grid. The batteries themselves are comprised of cells that are organized into modules. After those modules are put together, they're put into racks and kind of stacked on top of each other into the containers. During this process, they also have battery management systems that tracks the state of charge, the voltage, the temperature, all the brains of really what's going on in the container. Go to the next slide. So here you can see all the actual modules stacked on top of each other in columns throughout the entire container. On the left, you can see the SCADA system, or the supervisory control and data acquisition, which kind of gives us real-time information of what's going on with the batteries, where they're being pushed and pulled to, the health of the batteries themselves, and that's all tied into our SCADA system that goes back to our offices where we track it and also track it with the utility. Here you can see in our Texas 13 jobs where we're placing the batteries. You can see they're all kind of stacked in a row with about 4 battery containers to 1 PCS. On the left, you can see where we're setting them in with a crane, where we kind of just get into this modular process of stacking them down the project. Next, talk about decommissioning. Within 6 months of the project ending operations at the end, KCE's lease with the owner, KCE will start the decommissioning of the facility, where we plan to restore the surface land to its conditions prior to construction, remove all underground and above ground infrastructure, reapply any topsoil, reseeding, make sure the stormwater measures are restored to the original condition. The landowner may elect to keep the roads, foundations, and other aspects, but we make sure we use proper industry practices to make sure all the batteries are returned and recycled to where they need to be, and everything's essentially restored to the way it was originally when we got there. Next, I'll talk over to Robert to talk through safety.
Thank you, Matt. Hello, everybody. I'm Robert Tepp. I work within KCE's construction department. I'm the Director of Health, Safety, Environmental, and Quality for Key Capture Energy. So as part of the project, we always start out with the outreach ahead of the project. So as we get ready to start construction, and we have already started meeting with the fire marshal to discuss the project, as we move towards construction with any of our projects, we have meetings and trainings that we conduct. So we make sure that we are available to the fire marshal or any of the other emergency responder services within the area to train them about what's going on in the project throughout the entire project life cycle. We'll meet with them immediately before construction begins. Then we get into a more serious training when we start to deliver batteries to the project site. Have a final training and a whole site walkthrough with the emergency responders as we go into production. Once we do go into production, we also do take and have annual refreshers that are offered as well to make sure we are keeping everybody up to date and keeping the people that may be new to the emergency response also fully trained on that. We do train safety. It's our primary goal. Safety is paramount to us. You know, we've got a whole list of the codes that are constantly being updated. We make sure that we are always meeting or exceeding any of these regulations and codes that are applicable. We make sure we're working with the fire marshal to understand if there are any special nuances within an area that we have to be meeting as well. Once we do go into operations, we do have remote monitoring and emergency response systems that go into effect. That's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It starts out with that SCADA system that Matt was talking about that's monitoring the health of the system. So we're getting information continuously on the health of not only each battery module, but cells within that. As part of the actual operational side, then on the fire suppression system side, we have a completely separate and additional monitoring that's going on. So that is being set up and programmed by a state licensed fire company that takes and installs that fire suppression system within our battery monitor or within the battery containers. So they're working hand in hand with the fire marshal, making sure they're aware of what's going on, giving them the chance to perform the inspections that might be needed before we go into service. So within each container, there are sensors for smoke, heat, or any other applicable gas to monitor that. That gets fed into a separate battery monitoring panel. Information for that is available on a panel that's right out at the fence gate or outside of the fence, so that the fire department wouldn't have to go inside at all to even see any of that. All of that is just kind of going above and beyond to make sure that everything is available. We do have all the planning on the environmental side as well, so there will be a SWIP permit, so we're making sure we take care of stormwater and controlling that so that we don't have any pollution arising out of that during construction. We also will have spill prevention control and countermeasure plans in place, making sure first that we are preventing any spills from occurring, and that we do have emergency procedures in place to respond to anything that would be happening. With that, we would have the SPCC, and we would also have our full emergency operating procedures and our safety data sheets available on site. When we're building, again, safety is paramount, so we do take, through the construction side, have very detailed safety training that's required for everybody that comes on site, making sure that we are addressing all of the possible incidents that could happen before they're happening. So we cover all the basics, the slips, trips, falls, struck by, have the PPE that's required as soon as somebody steps onto the project site to make sure they're working safely. Do have the on-site AED and CPR AED trained personnel on site. Then when we go into operations, the site is remotely operated and monitored. When we do have servicing personnel on site, we will make sure that they have the appropriate training and PPE in place as well. And with that, I'm going to hand off to Greg.
All right, thank you. Good evening. My name is Brian Scholl. I work for a company called Energy Safety Response Group. We're a group of fire service professionals that go around the country. Mostly we train first responders on battery incidents. We also come here and talk about safety to the community. As of next week, I'll have 22 years in the fire service. I actually work currently in the Arizona Fire Department right now. So first thing I want to talk about with you is these are not your micromobility, electric vehicles, drills, those type of batteries. These batteries are highly regulated and highly tested. We go through a battery testing to make sure they get listed before they even are able to come online. So I want to make sure we all understand these are different than all the ones that you've seen in New York City where we're having issues with high rises, where people are plugging in their scooters. These are not those type of batteries. These are totally different. So as we talk about this, the big one up there is called NFPA 855. That's the National Fire Protection Association's national standard on battery safety and battery installations. I actually am on that committee where we actually are writing the codes to make these safer. We're in the second edition, and all the batteries that you see here today that's coming in your community will be in accordance with not only NFPA 855, also your local fire code as well. There's also different standards that start coming in. The standard for UL listing at 1973, that's for the battery itself. If the battery itself can't get listed, then we can't even go past that. And the next listing you'll see is UL 9540, which is the large test. And this is the 9540 test. It's called UL 9540A, it's actually the test. And what we do is we start at the cell, individual batteries, and we actually put a nail through it to make it go into thermal runaway to see what's going to happen. And you fail the test if it propagates, meaning that it goes from one cell, the one that we actually put the nail in, to the next cell. That's called propagation. If it does propagate, it's a fail. After we go to the cell, then we go to the module level. Like we showed in that previous picture, now we're putting the cells in the module. What happens as a module if we have an issue? Does it propagate to the next module? Then we go to the rack. The whole rack gets involved. And then the entire unit. If, for any reason, that we propagate from cell to cell, from module to module, it's a fail and will not get listed. UL 9540 and NFPA 855 says it has to be listed. If it's not listed, it cannot be installed. This is a very intense test. This takes a lot of time to go through to make sure we're doing this correctly. And this is the number one thing that we do for NFPA 855 is make sure these batteries are listed. This is kind of very important to me, being in the fire service. There was an incident that we had many years ago outside of Phoenix where it actually hurt one of my friends. And the reason that it was an issue was that it was batteries placed inside of the building. And that captain of that hazmat crew, he needed to get a temperature reading inside that room. So him and his crew walked up to that door an hour and a half after the incident, opened the door and exploded. Since then, we don't do that anymore. We created the standards and the codes to say something bad happened, we're not going to do that again. So therefore, you'll see now these are non-occupiable cabinets, There's nobody that's going to be inside that cabinet that I have to send my folks in to try to rescue anybody. We can sit back, we call it a defensive operation. These things are designed to consume itself. They stay in the cabinet, they consume itself, And there we go. And they consume themselves, and then all us first responders, we go home that night. And that's what's important to me. It's firefighter safety, making sure we go home at the end of the night. The nice thing about these systems, we talked about the battery management system. If you have one cell that changes temperature or changes voltage, they can shut down that cell, that module, or that entire cabinet remotely, way before we get dispatched. Okay? So it's a defensive operation. A lot of people talk about the smoke. All smoke is toxic. The research that we've shown is there's nothing different between a fire involving a battery energy storage system than a commercial fire. Same things. The biggest thing in these is a lot of plastics. Same thing that we'll see at a Home Depot or Ace Hardware. A lot of plastics. We can actually use hose streams if we needed to actually manipulate the smoke. We do it all the time. So if we need to, we could. But the one thing we want to do with these is let them do its thing. It's a chemical reaction. There's nothing that we have that's going to actually stop that chemical reaction. Let it do its thing. We don't need to spray any water, and then we all go home. And then we turn it over to these nice folks, and they take care of their batteries.
So what happens if it does? What do you do with that cell? Y'all gonna take that whole thing out?
Yeah, let's wait till we're there.
Okay.
Yeah, give me a second. We'll see who's the best to answer that. But yeah, most of the time it's they're modulated. Just pull the cell, the module out, whatever they need to be, and they send it back to the recycler. And this is the last thing. We let it free burn. By letting it free burn, it actually burns up a lot of the stuff that's bad for us. So we let it actually burn. We sit there, we watch it, we monitor it, and then we all go home at night. And that's the key. And for this community, I will come back personally, and I will train all our first responders on how to respond to these incidents. I've been out to Texas. I think this is my 5th trip helping first responders understand batteries and solar. So ESRG, that is our job. We're fire service professionals from all over the country, and that's what we do. Questions? We'll let Erica be the MC on this.
Thank you, Brian. And that's the end of our presentation. So I think we will start taking questions. And I'm not quite sure the best way to go about doing this, but we can start with hands. I saw your hand first.
My name is Marcy Thompson. I live out on Flat Rock Creek Road with my dad. Along with the Spin Raft, the Herbs, Matters. They're all older people, and they're safety guys. Well, my question is, it gets really dry, of course, here in Texas. So if that fire does break out, how's it going to be contained? Because we're on the other end, can't get out.
Right, so what we do is we're going to work with our first responders and we create an emergency response plan. And that's going to take into account everything that's going to be involved. Not only is it going to be a fire, is it going to be a fire that's outside the facility, but if you look at the map, there's space, and it's called a fire break between the batteries and their wall. So it's going to keep, if there is a problem, they can respond real quickly, and I'm pointing because I know the chief's back there. They can respond and actually put it out. They have enough space to actually defend. So, but through that emergency response plan, that's what we're going to create with them and say, okay, if this happens, this is what we're going to do. If this happens, this is what we're going to do.
Can you guarantee that to us that the fire is not going to escape those little containers and spread?
I can tell you that
They can't fight it.
Can you repeat the question when you're done?
Microphone.
All right, we're going to start again.
Sorry, ex-coach, I thought I was loud enough. My question was to the safety corporate guy here is, several of us here live out on Flat Rock Creek Road. We live past where this is going to be. This thing burns, and it burns really hot. And I'm asking, is it going to be able to be contained while it burns itself out? I've been told that it has to burn itself out, and he pretty much said that tonight. He said he's saying that he's going to train everybody. Well, that's great, but what's going to happen to all of us on the other side of it while it's burning itself out, if it can be contained or not contained? That's my question. How are we going to be safe?
So, all right, so I'll go through through the answer again. So what we're saying is that we're going to work with the local first responders and fire departments and make an emergency response plan. And this microphone is horrible.
Realize we're a volunteer fire department.
Yeah. So
It takes a bit for the first.
So actually, in the country, 7% of all fire departments are volunteer. And every single department that I have trained out here is 70% is volunteer. I'm from actually Long Island, New York, and our fire department is all volunteer. And all the ones that I've taught out here so far have been volunteer fire departments. Okay? So back to the question. We're going to work with the fire departments. We're going to create emergency response plans to come up with all those scenarios and what are we going to do to mitigate that. And that's one of them we're going to look at. But once again, there is space between the batteries and their wall and the batteries to the property line that's required by code that actually makes that defensible space for us to take care of.
All right, we have a second mic now. I understand there are a lot of questions, so keep your hands up. We're going to do our best to get to everyone.
Yeah, the second mic, sorry, right here in the middle, thank you, confirm.
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
I don't need a mic.
Come on, Amanda.
I want to know, since inception of y'all's company, how many spontaneous fires have y'all had? In all of your facilities all around the United States?
Yeah, so we have never had a fire during our operating projects. We did have a small fire during the commissioning of one that did not, it was contained to the single fire. There was no damage to the community, no one was injured.
Same type of batteries?
The incident in Arizona was not
There
our
wasn't one that happened in New York?
also not our company.
Okay, but it does happen. Fire suppression system, are you using powder, or are you using foam? What are you using? Because water does not put out this type of fire.
Yeah, so like I said, the best strategy for us is defensive and not actually put any water on that fire.
Exactly. To let it just burn out,
Let it burn
oxygen in
itself
the
out,
container.
and then, you know, we have water on our trucks in case we need water. There's water tankers we can bring, but for the most part, it's a defensive fire. We're not putting any water on it.
And then what happens once that container has been burnt?
So from the fire service, once that container the habit is actually consumed, then we turn it over to these guys, and they take care of it. They dispose of it per all the local, federal, and state, local, and county
Who
ordinances.
takes the microphone there, though, and answers the question?
Can you repeat the question?
Can you guys hear me?
I'm with Comfort ISD, so what we're going to try to do is have anyone that has a question maybe line up in the middle, so that way we don't have them just running back and forth. I think it'd be a little quicker. So if everyone can just stand in the middle and we'll get the mic to you.
Probably not a good idea.
All right. Folks are lining up. Yes, ma'am.
So once the container has caught fire and it puts itself out, what do you do?
I would have to, Robert, can I answer that question?
Yes.
Can you repeat the question?
So the question is, once the container consumes itself, what do we do with that equipment post-fire? And what we do is, first off, the whole site would have been taken offline during that event. Once it has fully consumed itself, we bring in ourselves and our battery technology provider for that, who is a specialist in it, and we'll take and do an investigation into it, determine that area is safe. At that point, we would work with them on the plan for taking in whether it is just an individual module or a couple of modules within it, where we take and remove that equipment. They would send it back to their facilities to determine whether they can take and recycle or reuse any portion of that, and we bring in new equipment to replace that.
So you would open the container on site?
We would not open the container on site until after we've gone through all the steps to determine it had fully consumed itself. So there'd be thermal testing that's done at the doors. You'd take and measure temperatures. You would make sure it had fully consumed itself, completely cooled off before you would ever consider opening that container.
But at that time, any carcinogens or anything else in that container would be released into the environment. And if anything were to run out onto the ground, it could get into our groundwater as well. Correct.
So there should not be any liquids in there. And we're not applying water to it. We're not creating that runoff. As to opening the container, Brian, do you? Right.
So these containers are actually, everyone heard the question, right? Okay, so these containers are actually not airtight, so, if there's an event, they actually have venting on top. So there is gonna be no more, there's not enough carcinogens left in there.
Well, that's worse than we just let it all out and free willy.
Well, like I said, we let it free burn, and then it burns everything up, and that's the key behind what we're doing.
Okay.
There's a delay sometimes, stuff in, but
Yeah, no, that's my husband.
Okay.
He's a hazmat firefighter for the city of San Antonio for 22
So
years.
there's a delay sometimes.
He knows exactly.
You're gonna probably get, I don't know if you wanna.
You want to come? The last thing that I want to say is that obviously y'all have not studied this community very well. As far as your 30 to 50 jobs, who cares? Those jobs are not going to come from the people who work here. They're going to come out of San Antonio. They're going to come out of Bandera. They're going to come out of the big towns. We don't care about the jobs. As far as the $6.5 to $10 million worth of abatements for our schools over 20 years, let me tell you something. These people, these old German farmers and ranchers that have been here forever, we got more money than y'all can even imagine. We don't give a shit, pardon my French, about your little tax.
Average truck, $6,000 a year for over 20 years.
Yeah, we don't care. And as far as your $5,000 to the Boys and Girls Club, we appreciate it, but I can whistle loud and make $5,000 in about 10 minutes in this community. So please don't come here and tell us that y'all are doing us a favor, because you are not.
Okay, I'm following that apparently. My question is just yes, no. Has the land lease already been signed, and is it in effect between both parties, KCE and the landowners?
Yes. Yes.
So it has been signed.
We do have an active lease with the
landowners.
With the trustees of the landowners.
Mm-hmm. So how long is the lease in effect?
It's a 20-year lease.
When did that happen?
In 2020? In public record, I think it was 2019.
Yeah.
2019 or 2020? Well, the development process takes a very long time for us to know that we're building a good project. So we've done a lot of years of research on the land and on the electrical work and how it's going to work and connecting to the grid. So it takes many, many years, and we're still in the early stages of that. A lot of secrets.
Okay, so since it's already signed, you have a signed lease contract with the landowners. Okay. KCE gets a lot of feedback from the community. Would you consider terminating your side of the lease?
I would have to talk with my team about that. I don't think that's ever been we've never experienced something like this on one of our.
We don't want
I'd like to expand upon the money side of it. You had the first slide up there about how much we would be getting, and then the $5,000 over here. The $1.5 to $2 million. It isn't clear. Is that per year? Is that 20 years?
Over 20 years.
I want to get it clarified, please.
So the 1.5 to 2.5 million is over the 20-year life of the project.
You know, I have a little piece of crap property down the road. My tax bill for Kendall County this year is $20 grand for one little bitty place. I think that is way exceptional for somebody that's going to sit there and take cheap energy and sell it back to us for a big ass profit.
I'll be short and sweet. Nothing we can do here tonight to stop them.
There you go.
The only thing we can do is we can ask our commissioners and our judge not to give them the tax abatement, and hopefully they'll pull out. The way it's set up, nobody can tell us back how much we complain. So that's what we need to push for as our commissioners and our judge, not to get the abatement.
That's right.
We are loving neighbors. It's great to see everybody, and I know a bunch of you, and a bunch of you know me. I don't think we need them at all. We want to wish them well and let them go somewhere and do their thing. They are a Korean-owned company that is a $1 trillion company, as I understand it.
South Korea.
South Korea, by the way. Yes, South Korea. And what we need is a swimming pool for our community. We need a place for the boys and girls that are teenagers to go and do some things. We need another Dairy Queen. We need another soda fountain like we used to have years ago when you came out down in the closet. Those are the things we need. We need, what do we need, Shotzi? We need the Golden Age Center. Where you can go and play bingo and see your friends. I don't wish them bad or anything, but I don't see a reason in the world for them to give us a nickel. And they make millions and billions and trillions of dollars on our community.
Amen.
We are here because none of us want to live in the city. A bunch of us have done that, and that's why we choose to be here. And we don't need them, we don't want them, but we wish them well. But let them go somewhere else. We don't have a problem. They can create a problem for us if they come in. I don't know how to tell them to go home, but see our side of it. This little bitty town, the last thing we want is somebody to come in and disturb our peace and our well-being.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alex Rudd. I'm a retired physician, and although I'm not an engineer, I've been looking carefully into this for quite some time. I understand fire protection systems, they've been upgraded, they've improved since the event in Arizona. However, anyone knows any system can fail, regardless of how sophisticated, how good. In fact, the more sophisticated and complex the system, the more opportunities there are for a point of failure, whether it's the manufacturing, installation, monitoring, or even a defect in a part. So I don't believe that Key Capture can guarantee that their fire suppression systems will always protect the community. They may be damn good, and I'll give you that credit. However, one thing that we need to know is what are the track records of the specific fire protection system that we have for this battery plant that you plan to install. The number of years that it's been in service, the number of facilities that have used this exact same standard, because these vary widely depending on the battery, the chemistry, the structure of the battery, and how the facility is built. There's really no one-size-fits-all. This is very highly specialized. Have there been system failures? Have there been system upgrades? We need to know that. This is our community. Now, I asked Key Capture Energy, why did you select Comfort? A small community. Why did you select a site on a narrow, dead-end road that I visited Sunday? It's in terrible condition. It's barely wide enough to accommodate 2 vehicles. We had to be so careful that our wheels didn't go off and wind up in a ditch. It's drought prone, water resources can be limited. I contacted a fire department in Angleton, Texas. They have a large battery storage facility. I had a long conversation. He was very helpful. They were required to have a pressurized hydrant on site, and they have a large municipal water system. This hydrant is dedicated to one purpose, to be able to run for days and redirect smoke if needed away from residential areas. Does Comfort have that capability to have a hydrant that could possibly run for a day or longer? Can we come up with that? Kendall County does not have a development plan for these facilities. Like many other rural communities, they are scrambling to keep up with the technology. For some reason, these seem to be located in rural areas, and I believe this is a very poor choice. However, the county deserves an opportunity to look over the NFPA 855, which also provides guidelines to communities to develop site-specific emergency response plans, including, according to my sources, including evacuation. In the event of a worst-case scenario, you cannot guarantee that something wouldn't happen. Most likely it won't. However, if it does, the results could be catastrophic, especially if there's not enough water to redirect smoke, especially if the event unexpectedly lasts several days. I went there and I counted driveways. The majority of the 35 or so driveways, there could be more, they are beyond the facility. Those residents could be trapped, potentially for a day or longer. They would not have access to leave. They would not have access to their own emergency services or their necessities. This is an open-ended book as far as I'm concerned. I believe this does not need to proceed until Kendall County can review these guidelines very carefully like other communities, set in place regulations, develop an emergency response plan that's tailor-specific, site-specific, including, most likely, the logical decision that these facilities do not sit well on a dead-end road that is barely wide enough to accommodate 2 cars, never mind emergency vehicles. In a worst-case scenario, our county has an obligation to protect public safety. And this is not fear-mongering. We know that technology fails. Even the best technology can fail. Unexpectedly, it can happen. This is not the right site for your facility. I ask you to find another location and give our community time to develop a plan in comfort. Unless you can solve our drought problems and bring a municipal water system and create reliable water pressure that can last for days, this is not the place for it. I have actually heard a report in a court meeting that if a major fire occurred in Comfort, it could disrupt residential water service to the residents. And that would be just a conventional fire. These fires can be incendiary bombs that can burn for a very long time. They give off a lot of heat, they can give off smoke, and all efforts to contain them are appreciated, and I commend you for that technology, but still, you cannot guarantee that there won't be problems with this. Unless we can guarantee water and access to evacuation for these residents, this is just not the place for it. Thank you.
Sorry.
I won't be as short as.
Sorry, could I answer some of
I think we had a couple questions there.
Yeah, I would love to answer some of those questions. Apologies, just one moment. I'm just going to try to answer some of her questions. So, this project, as Ryan mentioned, we do not use water in the firefighting measure of this, so it would not be taking any of Comfort's water resources. As he mentioned, it would be
Smoke suppression.
Your word.
Smoke, which is carcinogenic.
Okay, I will answer your question on why did we choose this project location. So we are connecting directly to the ERCOT grid, and in order to do that, we have to be as close to the substation as possible, which is why we chose the land right across the street from LCRA substation. The closer we are, the better. Yes, and that is a benefit that this project would bring specifically to your county, is you would see the grid reliability benefits first before the rest of the state would. So this would help with any brownouts, any flickering that you would see in your county. This would help keep the grid reliable and stable.
And that would be right.
That's how the electricity grid works. Yes. All right, sir. I will hear your question. Yes. Thank you.
I won't be as short as one fellow, and I don't have a long dissertation. Much of what we've heard is aimed at the back end of this project, about if something fails, what we're going to do. Well, I'd like to address a couple of key things about the front end. Number one, the energy that's being stored in the batteries. Whose is it? Does it belong to ERCOT?
So there are all different types of generation resources throughout the state of Texas that are connected directly to the grid. So large coal plants, natural gas plants, wind farms, solar farms. We connect to the same.
Are they going to buy this and store it, or do they just suck it off the grid and store it?
We will store energy at a time when it's not being used. So for instance,
but are you going to buy it?
Yes, we buy the electricity that we store in our batteries.
Are you going to sell it back to ERCOT? At the same price?
That's how the ERCOT market works for all generation units, is there's a marketplace where everybody will buy and sell electricity depending on the time of day.
I'm looking at the consumer and the economic impact. It sounds to me
This will
like,
have no economic impact to
it sounds to me like it's a high-priced rental facility for energy. And it's only got a life of 20 years. So people get used to this backup. You clean it all out after 20 years, then what happens? Also, you touting revenue to the school district. That would also evaporate. So this is all front-end questions. And like I said, you're not going to put this in here and store our electricity and then give it back to us without a lot of greed passing between somebody.
Yeah, so I'd love to address that.
Yeah.
We store the electricity that's not being used. So, for instance, when the wind is blowing really hard in West Texas at night and everybody's asleep and nobody's using it, if that electricity is not used immediately, it is gone. It disappears and it evaporates. The electrons will burn off of the
So
electrical
what
line.
you're
So
saying is if we don't use it and you don't store it,
It's gone.
it's gone.
Yeah, and that's a waste. And so we store the energy when it's not being used and put it back onto the grid, say, not 6, 7, 8 in the morning when everybody's turning their lights on and
Okay, well, again,
we're able to put the energy that was charged overnight back onto the
at the end of 20 years, where does that leave us?
with a grid that is supported
With the same thing we have today.
well, the ERCOT generation, ERCOT has
You know, I'm talking about here. No, I don't care if it's in the Grapevine or wherever. I'm talking here. You're asking us to give a tax abatement for 7 years on a project that is already designed to only exist for 20 years.
It doesn't even benefit us because we're not with LCRA.
So, 20 years in the future, just like a wind farm that's not here, a solar farm that's not here, a natural gas plant, you guys are going to be connected to the ERCOT grid. In 20 years, if this community wanted to revisit what that project looks like, that's a conversation that can happen. But we can't predict what is going to happen.
It's almost like blackmail that since ERCOT is a standalone grid and we're not interconnected to anybody else, that this is our only savior. I don't agree.
Fair enough, but not much we can do about it.
Yeah, my name's Randy Snyder. I lost track of where our judge, Solarczyk, is at, and our commissioners, but some of my comments are going to be for them as far as money base, but you know, you can't fight a burning metal fire with water. That's a given. But you need a lot of water to cool the area around that fire so it doesn't catch fire. And there's not much water out there to do that with. And when you start spraying down scrub brush areas, and that takes a lot of water to make sure it doesn't catch fire for a long distance, depending on what the wind's doing. But I think they drove us down a fluffy trail tonight because, you know, the safety and the fire and the hazardous and we're going to have 30 to 50 jobs for maybe 18 months, but not much longer than that. Really, I think we need to think about following the trail of the money. And I went to their company website and then went to a couple other websites based on the links from that company website. And really, it looks like the big driver for this, in terms of money, are investment tax credits, which are now available for clean energy projects. Key Capture Energy, founded in 2016, not that long ago. They are grouped and partnered with Enhanced Capital Group, which specializes in investment tax credits from the research I could do. I'm sure they do other things, I'm just not aware of them at this point. They are also partnered with the CRB Investment Bank. I don't know who they are or how big they are, but I have a feeling they're not little. In turn, they are partnered with Stoll Rivers LLP, which is a law firm. only 350 lawyers. They are also partnered with Greenberg Traurig, if I may pronounce that wrong, a global law firm, and they only have 2,650 lawyers. So I think you follow the money and wonder if any of that money is going to come here. They're leasing the land, they don't buy it. So are they paying property taxes? I think not. Well, are there any property taxes coming to us? My property taxes have gone up 48% in the last 2 years, and I'm sure a lot of other people in this room have had the same thing happen.
No taxes.
Correct. Reduced cost to customers, how? I think you're going to be buying energy at an incredibly discounted rate from Bandera Electric or wherever else it comes from. They're going to store it, and then they're going to sell it back at probably a significantly heightened rate because it's in a crisis demand and they can charge what they want. It's just like gas prices. Good paying American jobs, that's been addressed. I think we already know that they're really not going to be here. You know, how do you charge batteries from the grid? You know, fossil fuel, wind, and solar when it's available. But lots of fossil fuel have to charge those batteries back up. They didn't talk about discharge rates for those batteries. They talked about megawatts that could be provided, but they didn't talk about how long those megawatts will actually provide water to the grid if there's any serious problem. Yeah, so that's really it. It's just, I think the money is there, and they're going to give us $5,000, and they'll give some small change stuff to the schools. I think if you really pull the trigger on what kind of money we're talking about when you start looking at the companies that are involved, we are talking about local, you know, this is probably a small potatoes project to them, but there's billions involved with this. And one of the girls groups gets $5,000. That's real nice of you. Thank you.
All right, sir. Let me answer some of those questions.
So, to address some of the law firms that you spoke about, I think you read a press release announcing. Yep, exactly. Announcing an ITC deal we did. There were several counterparties as part of that. One of those law firms represented us. Now, in terms of property taxes, you did see earlier in the presentation the property taxes that we will be paying. Our property tax rates will be based on the community's property assessments going forward. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, just to address that.
Can you put that slide back up for those of us that couldn't see it?
Sure.
Yeah, and maybe Julie can talk a little bit about the property tax.
So one thing I wanted to mention is the property tax applies to the incremental value of the property. The property tax abatement applies to the incremental value of the property. So the property taxes that are current.
I can't see you when you're addressing that.
Property taxes currently on the land will remain. They will not be subject to the abatement. The abatement applies only to the batteries and the equipment and anything that will be incremental. So the project would not be taking any incremental taxes off of the books of the county. This would apply to new property tax revenue that would be coming in over the life of the project.
I want to know what's supposed to say in the tax. They asked how much. What are y'all asking for on the tax? They ask even what your fits for?
It's a 7-year abatement. It's abated, pardon me just a minute, it's about 45%.
Why do you need a tax abatement?
It's about $500,000 over a 7-year term.
Why do you need a tax abatement?
Your numbers don't work.
Why?
Your numbers don't work. 45%, you're saving 45%. What is the 45%? Because you said 500,000, but when you throw those numbers, I'm not getting 45%, 500,000, and then nothing else. So we should break it down for us, like how much you expect to pay, how much you expect to save each year. I mean, because you're saying, hey, we're getting this, but yeah, you're getting that no matter what. How much more would you be getting that if you don't get it?
So the value of the property changes every year because the batteries depreciate. And it will depend on what the assessor assesses the value at each year. The tax abatement guidelines.
No fixed assets will be added to this property? Are you going to be paying that on real property, non-fixed assets? Is that how you're looking at this bill?
It's all personal property.
Personal property, non-fixed assets.
Correct. Yeah, and the tax abatement schedule that's passed in the county's tax abatement guidelines
With the investment of over $15 million, there's an average savings of 45%. It's a tiered schedule. It starts out in 50% abatement in year 1, and then goes down to a 35% abatement in year 7.
You're going to get the most decrease. The last 7 years. Yeah, exactly. You're going to get the most decrease. And so you expect to devalue this all the way down to 0. Your batteries will be worth 0.
It won't value all the way down to 0.
Pretty close to it.
It's still several $1 million of value.
We're going to give you the most.
I just wanted to add in to note that there's a regular augmentation schedule for this project. So as the batteries degrade, they will be replaced, and then they will be taxed upon that full value of the new batteries every year. Is my understanding.
And you're going to hand those records in. You don't legally have to do that to the county.
I believe there are some Kendall County requirements regarding the tax abatement procedures, and we would follow the state and Kendall County codes for that.
So no, you do not necessarily can over your renewal record.
I'm not sure what the details are of that.
What are y'all usually doing if the county says no to tax abatement? What is y'all used to know that?
If the county says no to the tax abatement, we would evaluate the project and look at it from a whole perspective of if it's worth it. All right, next question. Thank you.
Okay, I have a few if you don't mind, and I'm just going to kind of go through the list if that's easy for y'all. So, as of right now, if you do not get the tax abatement, are you still planning on putting it out there?
As I said, we'd have to evaluate.
Okay. So, how many of the jobs that you mentioned were permanent? Because I believe someone at one point said maybe one would be permanent.
I believe there are 1 to 0 permanent jobs. So, but during that 18-month construction period, you have 30 to 50 people eating in your restaurants, staying at your hotels, providing tax dollars to your county.
What hotel? What hotel? So, just because y'all mentioned that, are y'all staying in one of our hotels, and are y'all eating at our restaurants?
I believe so. That's how we typically do things.
Okay. So where are y'all's batteries manufactured?
This specific technology, we've not chosen a battery technology for this project because we're so early in the development process that we don't have. So
where do they typically come from for your other projects?
I believe the batteries that are Chinese manufactured.
Chinese
manufacturing in China, but we are following all of the state laws and regulations that Texas provides in order to work with these companies.
How many of you people have one in your backyard?
So this federal tax package that one of the gentlemen mentioned earlier is supporting the investment of actually bringing those jobs to the United States, so where these batteries would be manufactured here. That is early on in very early stages, and so I believe a battery manufacturing facility will come to the United States in the coming years.
How many of y'all have one of these built in your backyard?
I'm a resident of Texas, and I've lived in Houston my whole life.
How many of you have one of these in your backyard?
There are battery projects in
How
Houston.
many of you have one in your backyard? None.
Okay.
Hey, folks, we would like, I do not have one in my backyard,
Why
man.
not? Why not? Why is not one in your backyard where your family lives, but you want to put one in our yard when you come from other states and other cities and other wherever you're coming from?
Folks, we are early on in our development process. Our goal here is to have a conversation about what this technology
When you're
is.
putting in something of this magnitude, shouldn't you know what you're doing already? You've been doing this already for a long time.
We are trying to address folks' questions here about what this technology
Well,
is.
that's an easy question, yes or no. Who has one?
We made it. Okay, so in the interest of making sure everybody has their questions answered, we'd like this to be a constructive process. So, we're doing our best here, folks. But how else can we? What other questions can we answer? Can we have like a 2-minute clock here?
So I just want to make sure, in 2021, y'all were bought out by a company called SKENS, right? Which is owned out of SK, which is based in Seoul, Korea, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and your batteries die over their lifespan, so they're required to be replaced, right?
Correct.
Yes, so we have a regular augmentation schedule where we replace batteries.
But as the batteries sit there, they die essentially.
And then there's a technology schedule that will identify and look at the levels of how the batteries are operating and replace them as needed.
Okay, how much do you stand to make off this project?
Ooh, I can't answer that question.
So nobody.
This project, I'm not.
How do you do a cost-benefit analysis?
But, yeah. So I know that y'all stand to make a lot of money. The people who are leasing you the property stand to make a lot of money. What does it look like for everybody else on that road who stands to lose a lot of money if you put this in?
So this battery project is actually, since it's going to be connecting to the ERCOT grid and it's going to be participating in the ERCOT market, right now the state is seeing an influx of a lot of renewables onto the grid, and those are causing price spikes throughout the day. And batteries are able to actually step in and help smooth out some of those price spikes as to not increase electricity bills. So this project would not be impacting anybody's local electricity bills.
I don't mean electricity bills. I mean, what is our property worth when you put something that can explode right next to it?
What that property value on Flat Rock Creek Road? Absolutely.
It's going right across the street from that LCRA substation that's already existing there.
Yes, I have grandparents and great-grandparents and people who live on that road. That's why I'm a little concerned about it. And my last question for y'all is, if it does happen, if something happens, and you can't guarantee that it won't happen because even you wouldn't guarantee it for us, what's my property, what is our property worth if something goes wrong, and if it all burns down, and if it's all gone? Yeah, are you going to reimburse us for it, for what it's worth? No. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
My questions are pretty much engineering questions. I assume you're the project engineer on the project? You're not? Okay. Obviously, these will be unmanned sites, completely unmanned, so we have remote telemetry that goes somewhere. Somebody's monitoring, somebody's watching, or they're just free flying. Okay. So somebody watches the telemetry, something happens, some sort of an incident that needs to be responded to. What's the average response time with the other facilities?
So right now, the way we operate the other facilities is we tend to have a contracted third party that is doing that remote monitoring and operations. That they, in our other facilities, like up by Snyder, Texas, they have an individual stationed in that area so that they have someone who can respond very quickly.
And that's his job day to day, is to watch that one system, or he's also doing something else?
So for this, he's covering that one system, or if there are multiple projects in the immediate area, covering that one area. Then at Key Capture Energy, directly, we have a project operations department that currently in Texas has 2 operation managers, 2 operations associates, that we also are selectively hiring in different areas so that we can keep response times down.
Do you have any numbers at all what the typical response time would be?
So, you know, my expectation is that it might be as much as a couple hours to get the first person on site, as much as 4 hours to get our operations manager there. But during that time, the entire site is being monitored and operated remotely.
You do use some sort of fire suppression like halon or something like that inside, or no fire suppression at all? It just burned out?
Right now, it just consumes itself. We have not been putting
vents out the top.
Does the county hold you guys accountable for core samples and all that before and during and after, as far as the ground contamination of any sort?
The ground contamination, no, we're not reporting to the county on ground contamination, but we do have the state stormwater prevention plan that we work on with KCE during construction to prevent any plans and actions of spills during construction. And then there are concrete containment facilities around the project site and around the main electrical equipment called the transformer.
So waste is not going into the groundwater at all?
No. Correct. It's contained by a concrete berm around the transformers and the batteries themselves.
Yeah, underneath all that, let's say we spill oil from the transformers or anything. Just a weird anomaly and something gets to the groundwater. What steps do we take for that?
So if there was a spill that occurs, what we do require, and in full disclosure, when we've been building, we've had perhaps where somebody had a little bit of diesel oil that they spilled. And what is required is that they come in, fully excavate that area, conduct soil testing, get to a point that it becomes non-detect so that it's not
a typical hazmat response type of thing.
It is just a typical spill prevention, control, and countermeasure plan.
When you send these modules out to bid, whoever ends up with the bid on the contract for the batteries, the containers, and all that sort of stuff, are they going to be held to the same standards as if they were built here? The ISO standards, the ISO 9000 standards?
Yes.
Absolutely.
In order for any battery to be built, you have to meet UL standards.
Sorry, let me just reiterate what you just said. In order for any of the batteries to be built, they have to follow all of the national standards, yes.
Our national standards. Okay. I think that's it. Thanks, guys.